Yeah, as far as I know. My page is here. My page is public now.
I need to get more.
It says it.
It says it? Where? Where's it?
Yeah, it's public.
Oh, yeah. I'm bugging.
Alright, Justin. Oh, you're waiting.
Oh yeah, I'll start it whenever y'all ready to start.
Okay.
It's about time.
Alright.
Let's see. I'll start that. That. I'll throw Jared on
Okay.
as he gets set up. Oh yeah, we're there.
We're live.
I believe so. Looks like
We're
everything's
here.
live.
Everything's going. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Yes, we are starting on time. I was
We
a
are.
taskmaster today. So, what was I say? Trying to connect.
It is going to at some point. How's your network?
Hold it out. Sorry, anyone's watching. We're having a bit of technical.
We're just getting all the technical difficulties worked out, guys.
It's shoot.
We're making sure everything is good to go.
Sorry, everyone. We're just having a bit of technical.
We'll be started in a minute.
You guys might. One of you might need to come on.
What? Might need to come off?
I can't connect.
Oh, might be too many lives.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Instagram one. I've been told Instagram is good.
That would happen. I said no distractions.
Oh, there's always going to be one. Every time. Yep, you all get to see my friends. And Jared is good. Jared is good enough.
Well, this is the link I gave everybody. Sorry, everyone.
So
We'll start
If you're
in
watching
just a
on-
couple minutes.
Technical. See, they don't want us to talk about this.
Oh, y'all already know.
It's the government.
I'm
kidding.
just saying.
Thank you for saying government, not, something else.
Okay.
Round two.
There we go.
Round two. Sorry, we just had some technical difficulties. They don't want us to show it. I don't know. But we're here and we're live. So, welcome everyone who is watching. My name is Bianca Hughes and I'm an Associate Professional Counselor at the Jordan Stones Counseling Center in Roswell, Georgia. I'm under the direction of Mandy Peak, supervision of Mandy Peak, and also Dr. Felix. So, with me I have...
Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin DeBose. I am a licensed counselor in the state of Georgia and a co-worker to this fine gentleman and this fine woman here.
And I'm Jared Washington, also Associate Professional Counselor, Pathways Transition Programs, as well as Peachford Hospital.
Okay.
Yes.
And so we know each other because we've all worked together as therapists, still kind of work together whenever we can as therapists. So we wanted to bring you this broadcast because if you ever work with us, we do get work done, I promise you.
I promise you we do.
But we have these very, very, really good conversations, in-depth conversations. And so we kind of wanted to bring you something here. I remember, was it maybe a month or so, I was talking to Justin and I was telling him about an event I done called Sister Siesta, which is really awesome with Jobbing with Jazz. I just want to give it a plug. I'm just saying. The next one is on September the 20th for you ladies. So it's a great event where women can just connect and just rest. And so I was telling Justin about it, and then I was actually scrolling through my Instagram, and as I was scrolling, I was like, wait a minute. There's all these great women empowerment and things that women can do and they can go to. So I was like, where are the stuff for men? And then I think maybe a few days later, Justin was like, I was telling him about the event. He was like, so when are we going to do male empowerment, Bianca? I was like, you know what, that was a really good idea. And also, just to let you know, a friend of mine also in London commented on the same thing and asked me the same thing.
It's a necessary thing.
So
that
it's a
needs to be talked
necessary
about.
thing.
Straight up.
So you might be thinking, well, why is she here? She's not a man. No, I'm not a man. I am a woman. But I'm just a bit of a moderator. I'm just going to be the facilitator. I am here to get the nitty gritty details because, you know, sometimes guys, you know, you just have a tendency not to give us everything, you know.
We give what's necessary.
They give what's necessary.
We're efficient.
So I'm just trying to get the bit extra than necessary, okay? So we really want to talk about the men empowerment, and I know for Jared, he talks a lot about the mental health aspect of it, Justin too, but also the socialization, and just really wanting to empower men. So I'll just ask you guys kind of what, I know I give a brief description of why you're here, but what about in your own words, why are you here on this broadcast today?
Jared,
What do you want people to get from here when they leave?
The point that I want to get across to everyone is that men are, especially black men, as much as we live in a patriarchal society, that doesn't necessarily apply to us as black men. Society is not geared to help us succeed. Ask any black man that, they'll tell you that. So what we're here to do is try to reach out to a group that we are a member of course, being black men, and kind of shed some light on.
That's what happens when you mess with technology.
And we're trying to shed some light on what black men are dealing with and how we can start to really empower ourselves and each other. I mean, you ask anyone, what was on BET? What was it, like 2-3 days ago?
Black Girls Rock.
Black Girls Rock.
Black Girls Rock.
Ain't never made one for us, huh? And don't get me wrong now. I'm not trying to step over the women. I'm not trying to down talk the women, because trust me, we know our black women struggle. But a little bit of focus needs to be placed on the man. It has to happen if the black men start to finally rise up. So that's what we're here to do, is kind of start to touch on some of those points.
Yeah. And for me, just really, I'm here just to also just to bring that support and shed light on the importance of vulnerability, to shed light and the importance on mental health. And again, like, you know, we live in a patriarch society, and we'll be talking a lot about that. We're talking a good portion about that. I will, at least. We live in a patriarch society, and that comes with certain definitions or certain ways. We've been socialized to be a certain way, and that kind of takes away from the vulnerability piece, is basically what I'm trying to say. And so I want to be, so I'm here to be that support so that we can get to that. So, yeah.
Okay. So, since you guys were talking about the definitions, one of the first definitions I want to ask you guys about is, what is manhood?
Whew. All right, straight into it, huh? All right. Jared, you want to first, or you want to?
Yeah, I'll go first. So when I think about manhood, right, I've been pondering this question for a couple days now, or actually a couple weeks, because we had this conversation a little bit ago. And I've been, you know, it kind of, when I think about what is manhood, for me, it's kind of twofold, right? And I say it's twofold because we have what society says manhood is, and then we have what manhood is culturally, right? Mm-hmm. And so those are, and it's kind of difficult to balance the two. You know, and so for me, what I would say manhood is, I would say for me, manhood is accountability and responsibility, right? And vulnerability, you know, being true to yourself. And trying, and when I say being true to yourself, getting away from how we've been socialized, getting away from how society, this patriarch society, getting away from that, right? Society says manhood is being a protector, being a provider. There's going to be times where you can't protect. There's going to be times where you can't be the provider. Does that mean that your manhood is? Does that mean that your manhood is challenged, or does that mean that your manhood is not there? And the reality is that it's still there. You get what I'm saying? But again, we just have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, and we're going to get into vulnerability later. But it's such a big, for me, it's such a big thing, and it's key, because again, we've been socialized to be this strong, powerful, and not showing the emotions, and that's what the definition of society says is manhood, and I don't agree with that. So I think manhood again is accountability, responsibility, and vulnerability, being able to be true to yourself. So
I like that answer, Jared. I really like that answer. I want to take it to another take it a little further. Piggyback off of that answer. I was taught that manhood is meeting the responsibilities that are necessary for yourself, your family, and your community. If I can give a short and sweet answer, and meeting those responsibilities without, I guess I should say without a sense of self-pity or, because you're going to have doubt, but it's meeting those things without starting to make excuses for it. But to take it to that next level, I believe that manhood, especially black manhood, is significantly under attack, but that goes without saying.
Yeah, it is.
Because like you said, the vulnerability aspect is key. That's big, that's huge. Because here we are, men as a whole in general, like you said before, aren't supposed to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So manhood is a lack of vulnerability. It's a lack of emotion. It's taking care of what you got to take care of, no crying, no complaining, no anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you happen to be a black man, so black manhood, a few steps down the ladder, you have to be even more of those things. Mm-hmm. In the middle of a society that unfortunately doesn't necessarily give you an outlet to take care of yourself. So, but again, we'll get into that. The manhood component is meeting the responsibilities that are necessarily placed in front of you by whatever your circumstances may be, kid, wife, children.
What does that look like, that actual, the responsibility? What does that look like for you guys, in lives of people that you know, in terms of that actual manhood? So just so some people can have something tangible to kind of think about or kind of picture, or even if you can give a movie or, a character or something like that, just to help people relate.
I think that taking care of your responsibilities piece for me looks like kind of like what Justin said, like taking care of your family and taking care of your community. I think that that's your responsibility. That's my responsibility. I think my purpose in life is to take care of my community, and my family is a part of that. You get what I'm saying? Taking care of the brother next to me, taking care of the sister next to me, right? And I don't mean that in a patriarchal sense, right? And I think that needs to be said, because again, we're talking about manhood, right? And when we talk about manhood, society says the protector, the provider,
the
leader, right? And if we even look at it from like the from a biblical sense, it's like the man is the head of the household, and I kind of want to get away from that.
It's a partnership.
It's a partnership, right? I kind of want to get away from that. It's a partnership. I'm strongly against this patriarch society, and so for me, so that's what responsibility means for me: taking care of my family, taking care of my community, and because it's definitely needed, So that's what it really looks like for me.
Okay, so. Did you want add anything?
Yeah, what manhood looks like to me, similar to what Jared said. To me, I would say manhood looks that way. It's interesting. I agree and disagree with Jared, because I like that get away from the head of the household. I don't have an issue with the phrase head of the household, but I wanted to be a clear distinction between the head of the household and between being a leader and a dominator.
Okay.
You can lead without dominating people. You don't have to lead by fear. You don't have to lead by power. You can lead by serving, which is what I think of when I hear head of the household. And when it comes to manhood, you're serving and taking care of your family. It's not an iron fist kind of rule. It's more of a what would be the best decision to get myself and my family to this next point. That's what I think manhood looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And I think, so I also think manhood, like there's a difference between a dominator and a leader,
Right.
and what can I do as a man, or what can I do as the leader of this family? What can I do to get us to the next level or get us to the next step, right? But I feel like for me and my family, like there's things that I just cannot lead in.
Correct.
And there's things that my wife may be better leading at, and that's where I can take heed and say, hey, you know what? This is your area of expertise. This is what you can. This is something that you should take over. This is not something that I can take over.
I'm with you 100%.
But I do agree that we can lead by serving. I love that. You know, first of all, service of all we shall transcend on. You know, that's you know, I had to bring that in there. You said it. You know, so I definitely think that you can lead by serving. I definitely agree with that point.
Okay.
So serving looks like what? You said, yeah. What does that look like?
But I'll use it
for you. Like, can you?
I got a perfect example.
Yeah.
Serving for me looks like, again, you're helping yourself and your family get to that next level.
Okay.
So for me personally, and I'm being vulnerable, and my wife is watching. Hi, wife. I'm gonna talk about you now. Like my wife made a transition in May when she left her previous job, and she started a new job in August. So in that time period, she wasn't working. So, I could have, like you said, that iron fist. I could have been that iron fist of, well, you need to get something over the summer. I could have been something like that kind of guy. But instead, I just rose to the occasion, did whatever was necessary for the home, and made her feel comfortable to take that time off and, you know, go back to work in the fall with a renewed, you know, feeling rested, feeling good. That's what I get kind of leading by serving. That to me, that's a good example of it, because you kind of propel her to her next level, and as a result, the whole family rises up.
Okay.
So.
All right. What about you?
Actually,
well, you didn't come up with that 7. That was more.
Yeah.
But you like the idea.
I like the idea, and I agree with it. I had a very similar situation where my wife was in school, and I had to rise to the occasion and you know, do what I had to do and things of that nature. So. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, in general, I know for me, just even though in the household, but leadership is about servanthood.
Yes, it is.
Right? So it's about servanthood. So one of the things that you guys mentioned, and it's my favorite topic, vulnerability. We're gonna just go straight in it. What does it mean? What does it look like? Because you kind of mentioned that. So this is what I hear. Okay, this is what I hear when we're trying to do some therapy. Is men don't cry. Men don't have emotions. You just got to suck it up. You just got to move along. Can't talk about this. That's just the way it is. But then you know what I see, and I think you guys, I notice that the men turn to an addiction.
Something.
Instead. Because there's all these stuff going on that you're not supposed to talk about or be vulnerable to, because if you're vulnerable, what happens? What is supposed to happen, or what does that mean? What does that represent? So let's kind of talk about what vulnerability has represented for you guys kind of growing up and in society, and what you've had to fight against, and then what does it represent for you now?
Ooh, vulnerability. All right. It's going to be fun, Jerry.
Do you want to define it?
It should be real fun, right?
He said, I want to define it. No, I don't. I do not. We'll be here all night, and I'm good on that. Vulnerability, yikes. I understand vulnerability because I'm a therapist, so I get it on that perspective. But like I said, I try to come from the social component. Socially, we are trained not to be vulnerable. There are too many things in society that associate vulnerability in a man with weakness.
Okay, yeah, that's the word.
And here's the thing about that. I disagree with vulnerability meaning weakness, but I have to when I say recognize, I should say, I have to recognize that it's prevalent in society. So I could sit here and tell any man watching or any woman watching and tell their man, go home and be vulnerable. Just start being vulnerable. It's all for the greater good. Yeah. And what'll happen is a bunch of people who he shouldn't be vulnerable around will tear him apart.
Okay.
And so I can't sit here and say that they should just throw it all out there.
Okay.
I think that we have to recognize that vulnerability is important, but it's who are we vulnerable with that matters significantly more than even just opening up in the first place.
Yep.
I think we have to start to make better choices about who are we being open with and who are we being vulnerable to.
Yep.
Man, to me, it's a learning process even I had to go through. And these two know me, and anyone else that knows me that may be watching, I'm a friendly person. I'm an open person. I'm the kind of person that I'll what did I say before? Like I'll sell myself for the greater good of everybody. Meaning, if I gotta say something goofy to make Jared laugh and we having a bad day at work, I'm gonna do it. Bianca has called me a fool many times. Many times. It is what it is. Others watching have. It is. I know it's not an insult on my intelligence. It's more so a trying to get people to feel comfortable, and that's what vulnerability is. It's a feeling of comfort with people that you feel you can open up with and share to.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think for me the definition of vulnerability is really just being able to express and show uncomfortable emotions. I think that is.
Can you name some of those uncomfortable emotions, or some people might refer to them as negative emotions? Is what I've
Fear.
often heard.
And fear, sadness, loneliness.
Yep.
Black men feel lonely and fearful.
We'll get there.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And but
like
it's so important to express those type of emotions, and like Justin said, expressing those type of emotions to the right people, to a safe person, a person that you can identify as safe, a person that you can identify that you feel comfortable with sharing these uncomfortable emotions. And vulnerability is all about also being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's it.
If that makes sense.
That's it.
Right? Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because the thing the reality is that these uncomfortable emotions are natural. We all experience them, right? And since we all experience them, we're human beings, we're feeling beings, we all experience them, we have to get them out. In my sessions, I always give this analogy to my clients. When we hold our emotions in, it's like we're shaking up a soda can, right? And then we open it up, it's going to explode.
It's going to explode.
It's going to explode. But when we express it, it's like shaking that soda can and just slowly twisting off that cap. It comes off. It comes out in a much better and a much healthier way, right? And so that is also us not being able to express ourselves and us not being able to be vulnerable. Us as men, it comes out in an explosive way at times, or it can come out in an explosive way at times. You get what I'm saying? When we're not expressing ourselves, and it's so important, and it's detrimental to our mental health. That's the key, because it's detrimental to our mental health. But we've been socialized, like you said, that being vulnerable is being weak. When I was younger, vulnerability wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't a thing. When I'm around, I couldn't imagine crying around some of my friends or telling some of my friends that I'm sad. I could tell them I'm mad as hell. I couldn't tell them I was sad.
Oh yeah, I can be angry. I can be angry around you all
right?
day.
I could be angry. I could be mad, upset, frustrated, all of that. But I couldn't be sad. I couldn't tell them that if there was times where I was feeling lonely. I couldn't tell them that, because they'll look at me like I was crazy or like something was wrong. They'll look at me like I was a punk or like I was weak.
Right.
And that's what we have to get away from. And that's the barriers that we're trying to build, that we're trying to break down with sharing this this live stream. Is this whole idea of men. It's okay to be vulnerable, especially black men. We deal with a lot of things on a daily basis. We deal with typical stuff that men deal with, right? That every man deals with. But then as black men, we also deal with things like racism, right? And which is a big thing. I mean, just look at Charlottesville. How do we handle that? Who are you being vulnerable with? Who are you talking to about things that happen in Charlottesville? Because those bring up emotions for you.
Yep.
Right? Who are you talking to about it? We need that. We need that support. So
I'll even take it even from the overt racism. And now let me not classify this stuff as racism, but there are there's little things going on even in the media and television shows and everything that brothers see. Brothers see that. Yeah, I'll make people angry. That's what I do.
That's nothing new.
It is nothing new. For example, there's a show that comes on Sunday nights that many of my friends, male and female, love watching. They love watching Insecure. Love it.
No,
At the end of an episode, I want to say a week or two ago, a certain male character in the show was called a name that a lot of women that I saw on my Facebook gravitated towards. And the dude was called, hi mom, he was called a fuckboy. Yeah, sorry.
What does that mean?
Well, let's just say it's a guy that gives off an impression of good and is not.
Oh.
But he was called that. And then all of a sudden, all through my Facebook, all I saw, oh, I relate to that, just all over the place. And I'm realizing here it is, #1 show. I mean, the show is widely popular. And I'm watching tons of black women on social networking and everything just gravitating toward the negative thing that they said about the guy. And I'm like, I wonder what this is doing to brothers. I wonder what this kind of thing is doing. And on a lighthearted note, I had a conversation
What did
with
it
someone
do to
about...
you?
To me?
Yeah. When you saw that Facebook stuff.
There's that vulnerability.
Yeah. How did it
I was
feel?
angry. I was angry, and I was a little sad because I'm like, really, no one will look at any other aspects of the show or any other things that, I'm not gonna say what the woman might have done, but the whole picture. It's just, oh, I could totally relate to that. That's exactly what it was, and it's just straight negative, and it made me sad. It made me sad because I'm like, man, the lack of support that black men get is very prominent, but it a lot of times gets overshadowed, in my opinion. It gets overshadowed by the lack of support that black women get in their community as well, which we know exists. We know that definitely exists. But I'm bringing more attention to the fact that it's a two-way street, and that I think brothers are recognizing the lack of support now, and it's causing us to get those unhealthy emotions you talked about, the sadness, the anger, the loneliness. But I can't just run to your homeboy, man, I'm lonely. You know what I'm talking about? You go to the wrong man and say you're lonely, ain't gonna tell him how that may be received.
You can't say that, Justin, because it's...
So told you I was gonna be comfortable. But I say that to say, and Jared talked about the big things like Charlottesville, some of the riots, some of the things that are going on right now. I'm looking from even just the small social aspect on the really minute things that slowly add up and kind of take a toll on the man, saying, damn, nobody really care about us like that. And it starts to pick away at a black man after a while.
So there's a big thing here, what I hear you guys saying, as long as the vulnerability piece is hard, but there's also an aspect of that you don't feel like anyone cares, including sometimes some black women. So that adds to the pressure of all these other things that you got going on, and also adds to the challenges to be vulnerable.
Right, because when a man feels like no one cares, he's going to turn to, like Jared said, certain emotions that may be negative. That you're going to be angry, you're going to be fearful at the isolation or lonely, or you're going to be sad. And I mean, you see it happen all the time. When men, you ever seen a guy that just completely overcompensates in everything? He's got to be perfect at everything because he feels he has something to prove.
Okay.
I feel like I agree with most of what Justin said. The one thing that I didn't agree with is that I think that the people that we do get the support from is black women. I feel like black women support us overwhelmingly. I feel like
more than anyone else.
More than anyone else.
Yeah,
I feel like black women support us more than anyone else. I don't watch Insecure, so I don't really know about that situation or whatever. But I think that black women support us overwhelmingly, and I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
While he's finding that black women, y'all do support us more than anyone else. Let me make sure I put that out there before I get some inbox messages. Okay, go ahead.
No, I think what he was saying, what I hear you saying is so you're not misinterpret, is that when you see things like that come from bad women, it's hurtful.
Yeah, it hurts. Definitely.
And it
hurts.
makes you feel sad and angry.
Oh, definitely.
So we're here talking about vulnerability, and he's not sitting here saying, oh, all these women don't support us. We're talking about when I see this on Facebook, this
Right.
is how I feel.
Right.
This is being honest about, that's that vulnerability piece to say, you know what, this stuff does affect us. Although we might not say anything, you might cuss or we might say this, there is a part of us that is attached to that and does have feelings when we
Right.
do see that.
Right.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think what's interesting too, though, is that we talk about. I know you want to go to the next.
No,
question.
I don't. I don't.
But I think what's interesting about that too, because it makes me think about. I saw a status one time where somebody I went to high school with posted a status that said, "Hey, if ladies, if your man was crying and crying uncontrollably, what would you do?" And I seen an overwhelmingly amount of women say that they would tell him to suck it up.
That's rough. Wow.
And I saw and I was just like,
Jesus.
wow. And I thought for me, and I think for me, like I received it differently because I'm pretty sure a lot of men saw it too and was like, yeah, I agree. Like the woman should tell him to suck it up or
Of
whatever.
course they gonna agree. They ain't got no choice but to say they agree. You can't be the one guy to go in there and say, I disagree.
What?
Let him cry it out. Because then he gonna get cooked.
And I just was like,
Oh.
I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. And I'm like, maybe I feel differently because I'm a therapist. And maybe because I look at, vulnerability differently, but I've seen a lot of women, all different colors,
Right.
say like, oh, I would tell them to get over it, suck it up. There was a couple, let me not overshadow the other ones. There was a couple that said, no, I'll let them cry and, things like that. But it was just shocking. It just again, just double down on that point that, men have been socialized not to show any emotions, not to show weakness or let me do this for weakness, but not to show weakness, not to show sadness. You can't do it. And again, that takes a toll on our mental health. I'm gonna keep throwing that out there because I think mental health in the Black community is so important.
So big.
It's so important. I believe in generational trauma. And when I talk about generational trauma, I'm talking about traumatic experiences or just trauma being passed down from generation to generation to generation ever since slavery. Right? So if you have that layer already from the time you were born, and then you add on, as life goes on, you add on more layers and more layers and more layers, and not being able to express yourself, just imagine what that does to your mental health. Just imagine.
Yeah, you talking generational trauma. I 100%, man. I'm stumbling over the words. That's so true. That's so true. It takes many forms. Like your granddad taught your dad,
Yep.
about the ways of the world.
Yep.
And to us as men, it's the ways of the world. But what it is this bad thing was done to me. This is who did it. Watch out for it.
Yeah.
Dad grows up learning that. When we get of age, he comes, sits us down, tells us,
Yep.
this bad thing was done to me and your grandfather.
Yep.
This is who did it. Let me watch out for it. And it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps going. Yep.
Yeah. And when you said that they said what, suck it up. That part when he's crying, it makes me think about which is sad, but it also, I'm not making this okay, but there's the other side to it where people don't know, if you haven't dealt with your own emotions and your own stuff and have your own level of self-awareness and know your own vulnerability, if someone is crying, you don't know how to handle that. If you haven't dealt with your own stuff and it's bringing up stuff inside of you and you're uncomfortable, you're going to tell someone else to suck it up. And also going back to the stigma of like, oh my God, I got this man, now he's crying, this means maybe he's not the man that I thought he was. So now all those fears are coming in to you that you also haven't dealt with. And I just want to go back to that mental health piece for everybody in dealing with that, because when you deal with that, I had that today. Someone just gave someone a tissue, and I'm always going to talk about this. And this is my plug for the tissue. In society, when someone's crying, we give them a tissue or we tell them to suck it up because we can't deal with it. And what that is saying is like, you need to stop. This is not good. You need to get it together. You can't do this. I can't handle it when I'm giving you this tissue. This is what it's representing. when I'm handling the tissue. So it's twofold.
That's an
but
interesting point.
Yeah, I never
Yeah.
thought about that. That's interesting.
it's twofold.
Interesting.
And so
I was just
and so
processing.
I don't allow
Yeah.
tissue. I don't allow tissues. Like my clients be like, "Is she not gonna give me a tissue?" And the
I just-
tissue's
I just
over
don't
there.
want to know.
Yeah,
You know,
the tissue's over there, and they can go and get it.
Mhm.
But I will never hand it to them because that crying is that healing process. I mean, I understand. I've been trained and I'm used to it now to just sit there and people are like, they're crying. Like, no, this is a process. The way I see it is a process in terms of healing. But we're just so used to handling the tissue. That is what it is representing, and that's why people don't know how to deal with someone who is crying their
Right.
eyes out, because that's just what's always been shown. Oh, let me go get you a tissue. Oh, you need some. Any film, you will see people getting a tissue as someone is crying. And so I just want to talk about that piece. When we're not dealing with our own mental health and we can't deal with our own stuff, we can't even be in there to support that person that is crying. And so that always goes back to someone asked a question about the safe place. Where can I be vulnerable? What does that look like? How do I know that this person or where I am is safe enough for me to be vulnerable?
Oh, yeah. When I'm in sessions with my clients, one of the first things I say when it comes to being vulnerable is I make the analogy of somebody learning how to swim, so to speak. I've never known anyone that learned how to swim by jumping in the middle of the deep end, and you just figured it out. If so, you need a new teacher. I say you start with the little things. Start with small things, just maybe how you're feeling that day even. And if you express something to somebody and you get in something along the lines of, okay, and then they talk about themselves, you may not want to keep expressing it to them. Or again, if you don't have to be crying uncontrollably, maybe it's just, again, it may be a bad day, or you got a little tears, or you're just feeling sad. And if you express just something minor and that person tells you, suck it up, get over it, doesn't mean you got to take that person out of your life.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I think at that point, you've just learned that person is probably somebody you don't want in your innermost vulnerability circle. And,
Can you say that again?
you typically don't want people that will shut down your emotion in your innermost vulnerability circle. And since, again, we're reaching out to black men, brothers, and sisters too. I'll be inclusive.
No, you could do that.
But brothers, sometimes we have a tendency to run toward family as being the ones that we got to throw it all out on, and they're supposed, you know what I mean? They're supposed to love us, they're supposed to hear us, they're supposed to do all of this. That's not true. That's not true. Far too often, the people that are telling us to just suck it up and get over it are probably in your family. And again, I'm not saying cut your family out. What I'm saying is understand that may not be someone, even in your family, that you can't be extremely vulnerable with.
Yeah.
So share your vulnerabilities with someone else that's more supportive, and stop throwing it on whoever it is in your family you think is supposed to do it.
Yeah.
That's not it.
I always say, just look and see how they talk about other people, how they treat
Right.
other people.
Right.
Trust me, they're going to do it to you. Even though they're being nice to you in the moment, just see how they talk or don't talk. If they're not talking about their friend, business, then maybe you could trust them. If you hear how they talk about their friend, maybe in just talking highly of people that they know, maybe this is someone, and you give them that small piece of information. But you can tell, you know when someone you can trust. We all have that instinct, but we have a tendency to ignore it and second guess it. But
Right.
always go with the
And
third sport.
we talked about the hurt, and I'm gonna pass it to you, Jared. After this.
Yeah.
We talked about the hurt that black men are feeling. Imagine the pain that comes if you finally feel something, you finally open up to what you think is supposed to be your biggest circle, your family or your family, and they shut you down.
Yeah.
So think about the isolation of a black man if you feel you can't even talk to your own damn family about certain things.
Yeah.
Oh, you're by yourself at that point. Go ahead, Jared. My bad, man. I ain't gonna take over like that.
No, you good. I mean, honestly, I feel like you said everything that I was going to say.
My bad, man.
I feel like you said everything I was going to say. But yeah, I feel like we know who that person that we should trust. Like we know we can feel it. Like like for me, like I know the people that I can trust. I know the people that I can go to and be vulnerable with. Like I know who they are. And
What is that experience like when you're vulnerable? with whoever it is, what is that experience in the moment when you're being vulnerable, immediately after, and maybe a few days after?
Well,
because it's different every moment.
So for me, I feel like I am particularly blessed with the people that I have in my circle in terms of being vulnerable. I have people who are also in this field that's in tune with their feelings, in tune with others' feelings, and is just understands the importance of being vulnerable. So for me, being vulnerable within that moment, for me, it's like a release. It's like just getting it all out. It's just like, oh man, I'm feeling this way because of this, because of that, and yada yada yada, blah blah blah, and it's just like a release. That's just the best way that I can describe it, or whatever, right? Because I'm getting whatever I have on my chest, whatever I have on my heart, I'm getting it out, right? Mm-hmm. Now, how do I feel right after? I usually feel a little bit better than I did a moment before. Right? I'm usually feeling a little bit better than I did before. And how do I feel a couple of days after? That can depend on the situation. It can depend on if maybe that time I was vulnerable, whatever I had an issue with, maybe if those feelings are resolved. Right. So if those feelings are resolved, then I'm definitely feeling better. Right. If those feelings aren't resolved, then I may be back just in terms of just what I go through in my mental health. I may have to go back and be vulnerable again.
Right.
How about you? Same question. However, I want you to talk about the first time you did that. The first time you were vulnerable with somebody new. What was that like? Because it's different when you know them, how they receive you versus when you take that step. Because there's some men out there who haven't taken that step before and are scared to. So what was it like? What was those feelings the first time you were vulnerable and you just had that mask come off?
Okay. First times for me are always, I mean, I imagine for Jared as well, but first times for me are always the toughest. Always the toughest. My heart is racing at that point. It's racing as I'm about to come out with something, bring something forward, have that difficult conversation. I'm the kind of person that once I start, I just kind of got to get it all out. It's kind of, it's like a well. Once it opens, please don't close it. It's just the best I can say. Please don't close it if it's open. Let it all come out. At that point, I'm pouring it all out. And what I'm really hoping, what I'm hoping for to see if I'm going to continue to be vulnerable is, I'm looking at that person's face, their body language. I'm looking at how they're responding, even if they're not using words. I'm looking at anything that tells me, and it's something I'm still working on, anything that tells me they don't like what I'm saying, they're not receptive, they're not listening, any reason to walk away, it just kind of sticks out to me. So it's kind of like, it's almost like when that first time, I have to mentally keep telling myself, keep going. Because if I don't, I'm not gonna.
So even when you're being vulnerable, there's those thoughts like, you might have thoughts in, maybe I should change the story, or maybe I shouldn't share this much, or maybe this person is going to think I'm crazy. And so when you stop and then you go wait for the response, how is it in between you finish sharing your vulnerable moment and then waiting for that person to respond?
It's the longest minute ever, honestly. That's what it feels like when you drop that bomb. In your mind, it's a bomb. It's interesting because in their mind, it may be something minor, something they even knew. But when you drop that bomb, the men were waiting. What is he, she, whoever? What are they going to say? What are they going to do? What's their response going to be? And typically a person gives it within seconds. Within the next 60 seconds, they give it, but that 60 seconds is long. Ooh, it's long. That joint is painful.
So then, after, and you are in that same safe space, what are some of the benefits?
Oh, I'm closer to that person then. If they responded in a way that's healthy or supportive, I'm definitely closer to that person. We good now. We in there. Yeah. But that has to happen first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had lots of vulnerable moments, guys. So just want to let you know.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, we all the time.
I think before we continue on, I think with one thing that you mentioned, and I think is really pivotal, is you said you were like, do you have thoughts of, or not do you have thoughts, but you know, some people may think like, oh, am I crazy? I think that is something that's extremely big, because there's times where individuals have been vulnerable with me, and they're like, and they'll say something, they're like, well, does that make me crazy? If I had a penny for every time I've heard that phrase, I would be a millionaire. I promise you I would be a millionaire. And I think it's important to really harp on that phrase, like, you know, when people are being vulnerable, does that make me crazy? Like, even sometimes when we have those thoughts, it's like, does this make me crazy? No, that doesn't make you crazy, because people experience, we're feeling beings. We're human beings. We feel, right? And I know I said that like it's natural, it's normal, it's not crazy, it's okay, right? It's okay, and we have to get away from that. Oh, I'm feeling like this, man. It must make me crazy. No, other people have experienced the same things. That does not make you crazy. That makes you human. That makes you okay.
Yeah.